What's going on, everyone? Good mic work back at you on what is supposed to be, and still is, our AEW Dynamite review for September 1st, last night, 2021. And we're going to talk about some other wrestling news too, including the big story involving Bruce Prichard and Vince McMahon heading up the overall producing of NXT going forward and some of the implications of that, along with some other news tidbits was my plan as of last night coming up here today. But unfortunately, as many of you know now, wrestling was dealt another horrific tragedy last night. Daffney, real name Shannon Spurl, dead at age 46. Very disturbing events unfolded pretty much in real time last night for most of us on social media. And she took her own life, and we had to wait for confirmation on that until early this morning. I'm here on the West Coast, and I remember waking up around 7 a.m. my time and grabbing my phone. Would have been 10 a.m. on the East Coast. And just looking through Twitter real quick to see if any news on Daffney had come out. And granted, I was half asleep, but from what I could tell, nothing had been released yet. We still had no information, so I'm like, that's kind of alarming. So went back to sleep a little bit, got up at normal time to read the news that was pretty much sitting in the pit of my stomach all night long with her. For those completely in the dark here, last night, Daffney, real name, like I said, Shannon Spurl, was on Instagram Live speaking very erratically and threatening suicide. I believe he even had a gun in her hand, and fans immediately sprung into action and got the word out right away. A lot of prominent people, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful, Mick Foley, a lot of people had gone out of their way to try to tweet out help, even going as far as calling the police. People were notified as absolutely soon as possible, and family and police headed to where she lived after confirming the address for a while. And after that, that was the last update we got, and that was last evening. So as the hours continued to go by, you kind of have this worry and this fear that they did not get there in time. Because if they did, even though dealing with Daffney obviously is going to be the most important thing, if she's okay, you're probably going to want to get that out as soon as possible. Let everybody know she's fine. She needs help, obviously, but she's all right. And as every hour ticked by, we never got that. So, to me, I never like to, speculate or think of something this morbid or this gnarly, but the more I just knew it. I knew what the news was going to be today. It's just a sad overall situation. So to kind of watch that unfold and to feel that in real time, I did see the video. I don't recommend looking it up. It's just extremely dark. I think the person that posted it on social media is a piece of shit. I don't think that's a very cool thing to do, especially after the family now is requested, can you please get this shit offline and just, give us some privacy and whatnot, please. So I completely disagree with that video being posted or being copied and reposted or anything like that. However, if anything, that video really gives you a good real-life illustration of the pain and darkness that people who deal with mental illness and suicidal thoughts and things like that paints a pretty clear picture of what they go through behind closed doors, for much of their life. And, it's not something I've ever been able to relate to and understand. And, all I can do is just try to be there and help for anybody that I know in my life or anywhere. I've mentioned this every time. Unfortunately, wrestling suicides are nothing new. And every time this happens, I always make sure to let all my listeners know, anybody who's watching, my DMs on Twitter are forever open. I apologize if I don't see everything. I don't really check them when I'm at work and stuff, but they're there. And if you need to talk, you need to reach out. I've talked to some people before. So that's pretty much the best we can do over here from this aspect. But also just remind everybody that you're cared about. Always know that, no matter what. It was frightening and saddening, to hear in Daffney's voice, saying that she's alone when, there's millions of fans that cared about her. Even though she hasn't been in the wrestling spotlight in quite some time, I guess since maybe her TNA run, maybe 10 years ago or so. But she was a memorable part of, the ending of WCW. She was a great character. She had a lot of that sensational Sherry in her. She had a great look. She was tailor-made for wrestling. Tailor-made. And she was still remembered fondly to this day, even after all these years. So to see her kind of feel this way and feel so alone was really the farthest thing from the truth. And I think that the biggest regret of all the fans is that she wasn't able to realize that in time. People weren't there to make it. People didn't get there in time, to save her. So, just 24 hours ago, she was alive, maybe not well, but she was definitely alive. And this is something that she could have dealt with and, gotten help for and sought treatment for and made a full recovery on, in a lot of ways. So, these things are very, very frustrating and very sad because you do feel like they were avoidable. And, people who are closest to her, I'm sure, because I've dealt with suicide in my own life, people that I've known, it's no fun and it's no picnic for what it puts them through, because especially if you're close with that person, you're always going to wonder if you could have done something. Man, there were signs there. I saw it and I didn't say anything. I'm going to live with that regret for the rest of my life, and it's just a shame that everybody has to, feel that way. But she was clearly not in a good place, very, very dark place, but extremely young. She was 46 years old, so a year or two older than me, and, life ahead of her still. And, just a horribly, horribly sad situation with Daffney. So thoughts and condolences out to her and her family and her friends and everybody affected here. This is probably one of the more real life things that we've experienced in wrestling, because it happened and it unfolded in front of our very eyes, pretty much in real time. And we had to kind of wait for updates. Now, one update that we did get last night that I made a mistake on, and I misread, was from April Hunter, who was formerly involved in wrestling a little bit. And she had posted an update of what she knew. And she had said that the police and the family were there at the address. Now, I had misread that. When I read the post, for some reason, my brain read the police and family are there with her. That's kind of what I read. But then the post goes on to say that there was an issue with the apartment management and the police in terms of the legalities of not getting in the door or opening the door or breaking the door down. So I actually, as soon as I saw that update, I'm like, oh, at least that's some update. And I even tweeted, I'm like, this kind of implies that she's okay. And then as soon as I hit send, I reread April's tweet, and I'm like, wait a minute. It doesn't say they were there with her. It just says they were there. And then when I kind of combine that with it took a while to knock the door down, I'm like, that tweet stayed up for about 10 seconds, and I deleted it. I'm like, that doesn't apply anything. April Hunter sees this tweet, still responds to it, saying the same thing. It doesn't apply anything. I'm just telling you what I know, which I immediately apologized for. I'm like, I'm sorry, it's 1:30 in the morning. I misread that. I was actually so overwhelmed with relief that I didn't really finish the thought. So I was like, that doesn't apply. She's okay. And as a matter of fact, it implies the opposite. If it's taking them that long, an absurdly long amount of time to get through the door, why is Daffney not answering the door? So that to me just had the sinking feeling in my stomach, and you kind of knew what we were going to read today. And she, in fact, did take her own life, and it's absolutely horrible and tragic. We've seen this before, most recently with Hana Kimura, Ashley Mazzaro, the Von Erichs, Chris Kanyon, Chris Benoit, Crash Holly, Sean O'Hare, Mike Awesome. There's been a lot of suicides in wrestling, and it's just, it's horrible. There's a lot of suicides and, mental illness and things like that in general. People who really struggle with depression and things like that is more prominent now than ever. And if anything, this thing has taught us to, just really, really make sure your friends know you love them, and make sure you keep your eyes out for anything that might be abnormal. Because when you see the pain for real that's behind somebody's eyes, think about how many more people go through that, how many more people feel alone who aren't, but feel that way, and, wind up making an irreversible mistake, So if anything, it's just another, wrestling just been dealt another horrible tragedy, which you would think we're used to by now, but we're not. It's absolutely just tragic. So I'm hoping and I'm assuming that there will be some sort of a GoFundMe or some sort of a donation set up for the family, to where if you want to donate, you can. If I get that information, as soon as I see it, I'll post it all over social media. In the meantime, down in the description below, you can head over to Daffney's Pro Wrestling Tees store if you want to pick up a t-shirt, help support the family. You can do that down there. Also, I put the phone number for the suicide prevention Lifeline number down there as well to pass around. And if you yourself have ever been having these type of thoughts, just call somebody, reach out, I don't believe that anybody out there is ever truly alone, especially now when you have social media and you have ways of, contacting people, even ways of contacting complete strangers. I have a whole folder in my email, my Good Mic Work email, that's labeled deep. That's what I put on it, deep. And it's just years of emails that I've gotten from people saying that the channel, the podcast, the show helped them in a lot of ways. I've had several saying that it saved them from full-blown suicides, which full-blown blew my mind. But they're there. So even in an age like this where complete strangers, maybe just somebody that you see or maybe interact with a little bit on YouTube, that's enough. That's somebody. Reach out. I'm fairly confident in today's day and age that, people will be there for anyone, no matter how alone you feel. So in Daffney's case, it wasn't even like that. I mean, she was still remembered and still beloved by thousands, if not millions of fans everywhere. The outpouring of love today is what makes this thing even more painful, because everybody in the business that came out and shared stories, pictures, whatnot of Daffney, funny memories of her, how she was just a joy to be around. Everything was just love, including a lot of fans. A lot of YouTubers that I know here are way too young to remember Daffney, but they know enough of her, to, tweet out some nice thoughts and share their feelings on the whole situation and stuff like that. So, that's what kind of really is the biggest regret when you see all that love. And I'm like, man, maybe if she would have seen that. I mean, she was on Instagram. I'm hoping that people were, don't do it or whatever. But, sometimes, if you can't be convinced and you're too far off the ledge, we just didn't get there in time, and that's a shame. But she was a heck of a character. I remember her most from just the WCW days, kind of like the tail end of WCW. She was around when WCW was at, business-wise, I feel like at its lowest point, creative-wise at its lowest point. It was such a clusterfuck there, but a lot of what was good about WCW around that time was the undercard stuff, was a lot of the wrestlers there and some of the talent and managers. Daffney was one of them. Now, I always remember her being the manager of David Flair, and she managed him and Crowbar, right, who was Devon Storm, I believe. And she had run-ins with a lot of women on the roster, like Miss Elizabeth and Stacy Keibler. I think she even wrestled Miss Elizabeth. And when you watch how she was so over the top. She was almost like a combination of Luna Vachon and Sensational Sherry. She was extremely animated, and the screaming, and she had a great look, and she was smoking hot, and she was a great pair for anybody, whoever they stuck her with. It always looked good. And I think I just remember her most from her days there. And I know she traveled the independent. She worked for Ring of Honor. She worked for Extreme Pro Wrestling, Shimmer, and she was in TNA a couple of times, I think right off the bat there in 2002, and then she was back around 2009 or 2010. Didn't watch a lot of TNA during that time. Really haven't gone back and taken a look at too much TNA in my life, but I know she was there for a couple of years, and I know she did get signed with WWE briefly in 2003, did some work in OVW, and I think she was released the same year, so it didn't pan out for her. I don't recall why. I never really knew much about her personal life, so I don't know if she struggled with any sort of substance abuse or anything like that. I honestly just don't know. But clearly she's had a rough go of it as of late. And, it kind of pushed her over the edge. But it's just a shame because she had a great, just kind of overall presence and look to her. And I think her run could have even gone longer in wrestling had things just worked out differently in, lots of different ways. But she was built for wrestling, especially being, a female character on the outside of the ring after so many kind of hardcore chicks came before her, like Sherry, like Woman, and like Luna, and to kind of put all that together in a more modern early 2000s type of style, I thought was quite awesome. And she had a great gimmick. It's just a shame that things went down the way they did. But rest in peace to Daffney. Absolute shame, heartbreaking, and just a shame. But I'll answer some questions here in the chat, knock out any super chats, see what you guys have to say about her, and we will get to it here and start talking about everything else, which incidentally we're going to get into the story coming out about Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard heading up NXT and overseeing the overall production there, and We're going to talk about last night's Dynamite as well. We've got some information on WrestleMania, potentially permanently going to 2 nights. And that's probably about it. And then we're just going to kind of run through last night's Dynamite, talk about All Out coming up, and let you guys know what my plans are for the weekend. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. I'm going to turn off this computer monitor because it keeps turning blue, and I don't want it to shine blue light up in my face. But anywho, before we get into all that, I want to let you guys know a couple of things. Number one, we're going to be up here on Saturday to do All Out predictions. We'll do a recap of SmackDown and Rampage as well. Excuse me. We'll do that on Saturday for the normal Winged Eagle podcast. And then on Sunday, of course, after All Out, we'll be up here for a full show review. As a matter of fact, the link to Sunday's podcast and review is in the description right now. I've already put it up on the channel. I am really ready for All Out. I think it's going to be a really fun show. So make sure you join us Sunday night for that. Excuse me. Excuse me, I'm clearing my throat. And also, starting this coming Wednesday, September 8th, the Dynamite after All Out, we are going to begin Wednesday night watch-alongs here on the channel. So every single Wednesday night, I'm going to be here watching Dynamite with you guys. We're going to see if we're going to grow that audience, or if we can grow that audience a little bit. Excuse me. I'm going to set up the stream a little bit different, highlight a lot more chats, try to do some more interacting, and try to make that a thing on Wednesday nights for the fall. I've arranged things with my other job to be here every week, so we're going to give that a shot starting this Wednesday. So keep a lookout for that on the channel. Good time to subscribe if you're not already. And if you can, do me a favor and tap that thumbs up button since we got a little bit low on the likes there. I would appreciate those increasing a bit. And that should be all you need to know, at least for the immediate future. 3 straight days of streaming begin Saturday with the podcast and All Out predictions, Sunday for our All Out review, and then Monday night we'll be up here for the Raw review. And Wednesday, like I said, we begin the AEW Dynamite watch-alongs. And other than that, the only other thing you have to worry about coming up is a Patreon-sponsored review on Great American Bash 1989. I don't have a release date for that yet. It's going to be next week sometime. I just got to think of the exact day. But Mike Sem from Patreon donated to get that done, so I just got to finish putting that together and get that up to the channel. It will be there. So we've got a lot of stuff coming, and it's going to be lots and lots of fun. So keep that in mind. I want to say hello to everybody here that is waiting in the chat, if I can get my right mouse working. Six Woods Taylor and Cerebrus scores. Good to see you. Big J is here. Mark Simpson. David Brown is here. Nice. Happy birthday, David Brown. You're going to be 31 tomorrow. Man, oh, man. Oh, whoops. Oh, sorry. I'm trying out this new thing for the streams, but I'm not getting it to work. So I'll keep working on that to where on Wednesday I get that figured out. But there we go. Martin Can is here as well. Colin Wright, welcome back, my friend. Kadeem, Chase, Jet the Hawk, Jay Lambo is here. Domination Warrior, Deshaun Robinson, good to see you, man. Randy Peace is here. Brittany Trey is here. Alex is here, right on. Nathan, Arthur, Mr. E, Charlie, Stephen, Paul, Jamie, Connor, Tony, right on. Just wanted to say hi to everybody that is here. And we will start getting into some other news because there's crazy stuff going down. Now, the big news that dropped yesterday as well, or I think maybe the day before, was this news regarding NXT. Now, obviously, we're seeing the beginnings of the NXT rebrand. They have released a video and a new kind of title song that I guess Wale is performing, and a new NXT logo that's very colorful. We all saw that. Well, to thicken the plot, I guess, Brian Alvarez was originally reported this story and claiming that Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard will be producing NXT starting their next set of TV tapings, which I believe is September 14th, 1 week from this Tuesday, I guess. So September 14th will begin that. Now, Meltzer followed up on this report saying that they're kind of there to basically oversee the overall production, and they're going to be behind the big decisions, not the little ones, and mostly focusing on marketing and promotion and probably the creative direction of a lot of the top stars, but maybe not everything. So in that interview that Nick Khan had done with Ariel Helwani a while back, he said that Triple H was going to continue overseeing NXT. Sounds like that's still going to be the case, but WWE is going to come in now and not let it, I guess, maybe survive so much on its own, and it's going to have the Vince and Bruce formula, around it type of thing. And this is just horrific news, of course, but I had already made the decision prior to this to kind of sacrifice NXT. It kind of falls on an odd night. I'm generally going to be off from doing wrestling shit on Tuesdays. I'll try to watch it if I can, but for the most part, I was probably only going to eyeball NXT going forward. So for me as a wrestling fan, you almost have to just laugh at it at this point. Clearly, WWE is changing their direction and the point and the focus of NXT, which in a lot of ways I can understand. We tried to talk about this in the last couple of episodes, that with NXT's new direction, I can kind of get why they're doing it, sort of. I still think it could have stood alone and competed just fine with AEW, but the audience that AEW has is a lot of what NXT was relying on, and I guess WWE just feels like there can't be two of those companies battling for that same type of audience. So they basically just surrendered to AEW, let them take all the independent talent, and let them kind of have their own, let them be the alternative to WWE, and they're going to turn NXT, which had kind of developed into WWE's own alternative product, to turn that back more into a WWE-style developmental system, which we heard the reports of them focusing a lot less on indie talent. There was some reports saying that they weren't going to scout any indie talent at all. Turns out that's not the case. They're still going to explore those options, but they're going to spend a lot more time focusing on homegrown talent and shit like that. So when you combine all of this, hearing the story that we heard yesterday about Vince McMahon and Bruce Prichard coming in, does that really shock you? Does that really surprise you that that's the case? Of course they're going to, infiltrate that. And I don't know where this puts Triple H. I have no clue. I don't even really like to speculate in terms of the behind-the-scenes stuff, and, if Triple H's role has increased or decreased over the years. From what we all thought, he was going to be the guy to take over for Vince. It was probably going to be a tag team 1-2 punch of him and Stephanie doing the jobs that Vince did. But as the years have gone by, we've seen, Triple H have a couple of job title changes. We've seen Shane McMahon get back into the fold. We've seen Bruce Prichard be brought back into the fold, and also Nick Khan to handle a lot of the business side of stuff. And it feels like Vince McMahon's plans for succession are changing a little bit. I mean, it might be Bruce Prichard who winds up taking over. I don't know why Bruce would want that job. That's fucking insane to me. But, he knows what Vince McMahon wants. He understands he knows what's in Vince's head. And a lot of people just hate that he's there and all of that stuff. I like Bruce just fine, but, he thinks a lot like Vince. And if nothing else, he understands what Vince thinks is good for wrestling. And so that's who Vince wants around him. So, we could be transitioning from Vince to Bruce at some point, although Bruce is no spring chicken either. So I don't know what this means for the future. I will be interested just to see how the new NXT looks, because there have been reports too at the CWC. There have been things going on. They've been working on stuff. Right now, the atmosphere we get in there, I actually like, but, the black and gold brand has always been traditionally very dark, dimly lit, more of the focus on the ring and the wrestlers type of thing. And even the CWC, it's like that a lot, even though you've got some fans there and stuff, and they're making a shit ton of noise. It's still small and it's still very, very dark. So I think the plan here is, based on the logo, is to probably brighten a lot of this up and give it a much more kind of WWE vibe to it, which, I don't know what that's really going to translate to in the long run. I'm sure there's still going to be plenty of talent there that gets over, and now maybe cutting out that middleman into Raw and SmackDown, maybe, as perverted as this sounds, maybe this actually helps storyline continuity, character continuity when they leave NXT and go up to the main roster, because now they can be an undefeated, unstoppable beast in NXT wearing their championship belt, come up to Raw and lose in 20 seconds, and then 3 weeks later, they stick a gimp mask on you and put you in He-Man suspenders. Like, what the fuck? So at least now, if you already have Vince and Bruce understanding who a character is and what they've done, maybe that will make their transition to the main roster a little bit easier, instead of gutting and just destroying everything that made them special in the first place, which is what is happening now. So, maybe in some sick, twisted, very perverse way, there can be some silver linings to a new story like this, although I think this is absolutely horrifying. And to think where we were in NXT 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, with just these amazing takeovers that, a lot of times when they would be prepared with a WWE pay-per-view on a weekend, people would think the takeover was better. To do what they've done now to it is pretty damn crazy. But like I said, I think we have AEW to thank for that. If AEW didn't come around, I think NXT would still be flourishing its same way. AEW changed NXT. AEW killed NXT. WWE helped kill it. AEW gave it one good right hand and knocked it on its ass a little bit, but it could have still survived and fought, but Vince McMahon just said, no, let's just throw in the towel now. Didn't even bother. Let's just change the whole fucking concept. We don't even want to compete, with them in that way. And this might all tie into what WWE always tries to do and try to claim that they don't have the wrestling promotions aren't competition because they're an entertainment company, so they're now going to turn NXT into more of an entertainment company, because if NXT is more of a professional wrestling brand, that means another company does it better. And Vince doesn't want to hear that. So, if he changes the entire concept of NXT, he can't claim that the other company's better because it's not the same thing. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't be surprised if that is kind of his motivation too, because they're so fucking up their own asses and they're so stupidly, ridiculously, infuriatingly arrogant that this is the way they think. They can't, they just refuse to accept defeat. They'd be great. They'd be great at running for president if they lost. Nope, we won. They'd be great at that. So, I don't know. We'll have to see how NXT looks on September 14th. I'm interested in at least peeking at it, and we'll see. But Vince and Bruce, as if these fuckers aren't spread thin enough as it is, they've decided to now bring their nonsense into NXT and poison it. So we'll see how that goes. Here's some good news regarding WWE. Turns out, or sounds like, WrestleMania might be 2 nights going forward permanently. Fightful Select was reporting that the plan as of last week or a couple of weeks ago was for WrestleMania 38 in Dallas to be a 2-night event. And if that's the case, I think it will be 2 nights forever. Now, it unanimously gets supported by most fans. I haven't heard too many people say they prefer the 1 night. 2 nights is much better. When it was 1 night, there were a few years there where it felt like the time was just obscene. Didn't we have a 7-hour WrestleMania one year in 2017 or whatever year that was? And splitting up into 2 nights has its advantages, because now it can be a whole weekend-long celebration, and it gives you an opportunity to have more people main event WrestleMania, including women. So, this really gives them an opportunity now pretty much every year at WrestleMania is to maybe have a women's main event on night 1 and a men's main event on night 2. That's possible, unless they have just 2 huge men's matches that both require the main event spot. They could both take them up. But I think going to 2 nights gives them a chance to where they can have more female talent get to say that they main evented WrestleMania, instead of just 2 or 3 of them saying it until the end of time. So, in a lot of ways, that's good. So I think the 2-night event is fun. As of right now, the plan was to go to Dallas for WrestleMania next year, but WrestleMania is also going to be here the following year in LA. So I'm going to give it some thought to WrestleMania in Dallas, but Double or Nothing in Vegas might be more fun. So I'm going to go to at least one of those, maybe both, but one of those pay-per-views next year, provided everything is fine with COVID and there's no additional lockdowns or bullshit, which we still might see, since people are shoving horse dewormer up their ass to try to to treat this thing. Is if everything just holds and we're okay next year, then I want to be at one of those shows. Maybe both. So 2 nights possibly from now on with WrestleMania, and I think that's the right call, and I think most people agree with that, which is good. They can really do more things with that. That can kind of evolve too as they go year by year. If it's going to be 2 nights forever, they can play with that. They can juggle stuff up, and they can do the conventions and the meet and greets and the fan fests and all that shit. They can, incorporate it into one just crazy fun ass weekend, and it'll be fun to experience that, especially here in LA for 39, because I will definitely be there. So we'll keep our eye on that. If that is still the plan, we probably won't know anything definite until next year. I would assume until Royal Rumble time. Maybe they'll run a promo package. WrestleMania 2 nights, too big for 1 night or whatever the fuck. So anyway, I think that's going to be a thing. Some other news to report before we get into Dynamite. Max Caster returned at the Dark Elevation tapings last night and just made a run-in appearance to make a save for someone, and he's back. So it looks like his suspension, sensitivity training, whatever he had to do there, that's blown over, which is basically what we said all along. He's probably just going to have to disappear for a little while, or whatever, and he'll be back, and, everybody can just resume. Sometimes that's just what you have to do when shit happens, is just wait for it to blow over, because in this day and age, it always blows over, and there's something else the very next day for us to be head exploding mad about. Just got to be patient, you know what I mean? So anyway, that kind of wraps it up for the news I wanted to talk about here. Really not a ton of it to get into. Just wanted to make sure we paid our respects to Daffney. Talked about the Vince and Bruce Prichard NXT story. Talk about WrestleMania next year and that sort of thing. So that kind of leaves us with last night's AEW Dynamite. Ratings just came in prior to us going live here. Dynamite holds over 1 million with 1.05 million, which is good. They want to really stay over that, and you would think and hope that a go-home show to this pay-per-view that's kind of like their biggest one, you'd pull a solid number here, and it was a good show. We saw CM Punk get physical for the first time in 7 years. Surreal thing to see CM Punk and Sting together. What the fuck kind of create your own wrestler universe video game mode are we looking at here? Insane. And I'll tell you this, man, if WWE used Goldberg the way AEW used Sting, I would be perfectly fine with Goldberg being on TV every week. Honest to God. I mean, that is the proper use of a legend, what AEW is doing with him. And if only WWE can do the same thing, because Goldberg still looks like $1 million. He's still jacked. He can still be out there. If they paired him with someone similar to what they're doing with Sting and Darby, I could appreciate and tolerate Goldberg so much easier if he was just there helping to get someone over. And I thought everything that went on in that segment last night was really fun and cool to see. Punk get a little bit physical and throw some hands and throw a GTS in there. It was very cool. Enjoyed the MJF and Jericho promos, Britt Baker's troll. Really fun, crazy, balls-out main event. Overall, really good show, I thought, last night on Dynamite. Glad to see they pulled in a decent rating because it was fun. It kicked off with a banger of a tag team match, FDR taking on Santana and Ortiz. This one was awesome, all over the place. Santana and Ortiz had no issues whatsoever hanging with FTR. This was gorgeous tag team wrestling. Specifically, the finisher was so fun. I think it was Cash. So hard to try to separate the Revival names from their FTR names, but it's Cash who gets caught in the end with a kind of a reverse springboard cutter into a code breaker, walking into a super kick, and then they hit him with their kind of like flapjack reverse something or other power bomb Alabama slam finisher thing, and they put him down for the win in a really good match. I believe this gives them a victory apiece against each other, so that's probably going to set up some kind of a rubber match, maybe something a little hardcore. Every time Santana and Ortiz do one of these parking lot brawls or no disqualification matches or street fights, they're crazy, so hopefully we get a little bit of that with Santana and Ortiz and FTR, because this match last night was really good. I'm not going to run through every single little tidbit of the show. Just want to go through kind of the main points. And like I said, the CM Punk promo was a lot of fun. That was up next. And he comes out there. This show also last night was in Chicago, by the way, and he talks about being nervous about Sunday and admits that he's scared. He hasn't wrestled in 7 years. It's been a long time. But he's going to make a promise to everybody. But before he's able to make that promise, he's jumped by 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. And I can't say enough about 2.0. I laugh so hard. What a blessing. You talk about just falling ass backwards into luck and awesomeness. You know, these two guys get released by WWE. We all thought Ever-Rise, because they even signed a new contract, were eventually going to just be too entertaining to not get over. They would make it at some point. And then WWE just up and releases them out of nowhere, kind of shocking not only the fans, but them. And then they turn up on AEW and they're interacting with Sting and CM Punk in the first 4 weeks they're there. That's crazy. So they hit the ring. They attack CM Punk along with Daniel Garcia. Darby and Sting then come out to make the save, and Punk is laying fucking blows on guys, and Darby Allin's hitting a coffin drop on Daniel Garcia, and then Sting hits a Scorpion Death Drop on Matt Lee at the same time that CM Punk hits the GTS onto Parker. So they lay everybody out. Sting gets on the mic and talks about, he goes, hey, I have a lot of respect for you, so let's just get that out of the way. We never cross paths, but I respect you, and it feels so good to see a GTS in person. Felt great to clear traffic. Felt great to watch Darby hit the coffin drop. And I'm going to tell you this, on Sunday, I'm going to let this man fight for himself. I'm going to escort him to the ring and fist bump him, and then I'm going there to the back, and you guys can have your match. So, like I said, it was just a perfect way to use Sting. He's not stepping in front of the spotlight. He's not even going to be out there at ringside for this match at All Out, which I think most people feel and believe that should be the main event, and I kind of think it is. I've seen a lot of people almost like angrily tweeting things like, this match better to be the main event. I'm like, will you just calm down? It probably will be, but CM Punk's return to wrestling, facing a dude like Darby Allin in a match we know is going to be so good, to possibly even for a minute be a little bit mad about anything about that match is fucking ridiculous. So I think people should just chill. It's probably going to be the main event, but even if it's not, let's not lose our minds. It's going to be fine. I think it's going to be the main event based on their way they're building it, based on what I think is going to go down between Kenny and Christian. And this has got to be a match that kind of closes the show. Plus, we're going to get lots of surprises, I'm assuming, at All Out. There was the rumor that dropped last week about Daniel Bryan appearing at All Out. That will be his return date or his debut show, apparently. That still remains to be seen. We could still see Adam Cole, as we're going to talk about here in a minute. Britt Baker teased a free agent signing, turned out to be herself, but we could still see Adam Cole. And big news coming out yesterday prior to Dynamite, I believe, the Andrade and Pac scheduled match for All Out is off. Apparently there's some travel issues with Pac or something like that. Which I'm wondering is maybe just a cover because they want to open something else up. Now, I don't know if it's legit or not. All I know is that match is off, and it's going to be rescheduled for an upcoming Rampage show in a couple of weeks, which means you either now scrap that show or Andrade has a mystery opponent, which I believe he did tease something today. So if Andrade is going to face a mystery opponent, that could be your Daniel Bryan or Adam Cole spot, or Braun Strowman, somebody like that. I think those three guys would all be available. Buddy Murphy should also be available as well. He could come in and do that. Damn, Murphy and Andrade. I think we've probably seen that in WWE, but it could be him. So if Andrade does in fact have a mystery opponent, I think it will be, a talent addition. But at the same time, are you going to beat Andrade in that situation? I don't know. So it might not have anything to do with that, but it sounds like right now Andrade will probably wrestle somebody else instead, so he will still have a match. So who knows where that could fit in and who could be showing up there. I don't know. It's going to be a fun pay-per-view either way. After the CM Punk, Sting, Darby Allin stuff, by the way, Punk and Darby were in each other's faces, face-to-face, stare-down type of thing. No punches were thrown, but they were getting up there in each other's faces. And after that, we get The sit-down promo backstage with MJF and Tony Schiavone, pretty brutal promo here by MJF, and I don't mean brutal like bad, I mean brutal, just vicious. Comparing Jericho to Muhammad Ali and bringing up Parkinson's and stuff like that. I don't know, but MJF, he's the one type of heel that can get away with that. It seems like he's somebody that could probably say almost anything, and people will allow him the pass because of just how gnarly his character is. But I'm sure there are lines that he shouldn't cross and knows not to cross. But man, he tight ropes it, man. So good stuff here. I really enjoyed both. I mean, they were kind of both long, but I enjoyed what was said. You felt them both. Jericho was out later on in the ring with JR for his promo, called MJF a piece of shit and talked about the 3 victories that MJF holds over him, talked about his history with Jim Ross, told us a story. They are really setting up here this final clash, or what appears to be the final battle, that's either going to remind Jericho that he's the legend he is, or send him to the commentary table. And as of right now, we're going to do our predictions, like I said, on Saturday. But, I kind of want MJF to win. I think he should. I think this would be a great way just to hugely put him over. And this is something that, when you look back to, at the time, it was still a big deal. But even at the time, you didn't think it would last 20 plus years of Jericho talking about it. But when he beat Austin and The Rock in the same night, right here in San Diego, I believe, at Vengeance, excuse me, he went on to brag about that shit forever. And at the time, even though it was a pretty crazy feat and accomplishment to do that, it's not something in my head I thought could have lasted decades. So here you got MJF in a similar situation. If he beats Jericho 4 times, the 4th time sending him, into retirement or temporary retirement or whatever, that's some shit he can talk about forever. I still feel like Jericho might have a last and final match, and this won't be it. If he wins, obviously it won't be it. But if he loses and goes to the commentary table, I'm wondering if it's just a matter of him doing that for a while until something coaxes him off and back into the ring where maybe he has a farewell. But again, who should his farewell be against? Probably MJF. So this could be it. And it would keep MJF undefeated. So, if Jericho wins, then I worry that MJF's going to want another chance at it, and then we're going to get a 5th match. I don't know. We'll predict it on Saturday. But right now, I don't know who's going to win, but I hope it's MJF. But we'll talk more about that. Happy to see the outcome of the Will Hobbs and Brian Cage match. I really like Powerhouse Hobbs. He's really good. And, Cage I like, but I don't know, I kind of like Hobbs more a little bit. So Team Taz here pulls off the win. Ricky Starks jumps up on the ring apron, bashes Brian Cage in the head with the FTW title, and Hobbs is able to get the win there. I think Taz was on commentary as well for this whole thing. So that was kind of good. In a segment that I didn't need and was surprised about, we had a really interesting heel turn that began with QT Marshall calling out Paul White. Of course, QT and Paul White will be headlining and main eventing this Sunday's All Out. Hopefully they will make sure that Darby, Allin, and CM Punk is on the buy-in so QT and Paul White can have the spotlight that they deserve. So QT is out there calling Paul White out. He's got QT's got the factory with him. Paul White comes out all by himself and just kills them all. Beats shit out of them, chokeslam, punches them in the face, cleans house. He's in the ring all by himself. Beat up all those guys by himself. And then the Gun family, or the Gun Club, run down. Billy and his kids, a little bit late, but they're there in the ring to back up the Big Show. Billy winds up getting a chair in his hand when he goes to swat at QT, who is jumping up on the ring apron. Billy finds himself with the chair in his hands. Paul White's got his back turned. He's staring down the factory, and then Billy Gunn, for some reason, whacks Paul White with the chair right into his hip. He goes down. He looks shocked. He looks betrayed. And then the factory jump in, and everybody just beats the shit out of poor Paul White. So Billy is now a heel. I don't know if the Gun Club is now all in the factory, if these two factions have merged, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, this the AEW is very faction and group heavy. If you merge a couple, could turn out to be okay. But I don't know why the Gun Club would choose to team up with them, and now Paul White is going to need some serious help. Now, we talked about Braun Strowman earlier on. Paul White is going to take on QT. I mean, if the Gun Club is out there and the Factory is out there, you're talking, 7 guys? Something like that, maybe even 8 guys total that could potentially be pouncing on Paul White at All Out. Who do you think should make the save there? Paul White 2.0? Paul White 2.0. Out comes Braun Strowman to make the save. Maybe that's an early prediction here. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think that's the best use of Braun Strowman to bring him into AEW and do something with him that WWE would do. But might be a good way to introduce him. Might be a good way for Paul White to give him that endorsement, one giant to another. I'm going to go back and sit more with that headset on while you do the ass kicking in the ring, and you can be the resident giant around here. Maybe that's what it's all setting up. Like I said, Braun Strowman could be the mystery opponent for Andrade. Braun Strowman could not show up at all. I do know he's got an indie date booked against somebody, against EC3 down the road. So I don't know how that'll affect the possibility of him turning up here or what. I don't know. But we could see Braun Strowman. We could see Adam Cole. We could see Daniel Bryan. We could see Ruby Soho, which I hope we do. All Out looks like it's got surprise potential. That's for sure. After that, we go backstage to Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone. Britt had dropped some trolling bomb about having some information about a free agent. So Tony, on commentary during the previous stuff with Paul White, was saying, I got to get backstage and find out what Britt Baker is talking about. So this was pretty fun. Earlier in the week, Britt Baker posted an update on Adam Cole on social media and let us all know that, thank God, he doesn't have any cavities. So Baker and Cole are having a good time with his free agency. He is officially a free agent. He can sign anywhere. The fact that he hasn't re-signed with WWE doesn't prove anything, but it makes me feel good that he's probably not going to go back there. So Tony is backstage with Britt Baker. She announces that Rebel and Jamie Hayter will be in the Women's Casino Battle Royale, and goes on to talk about a big new free agent who has signed with AEW, and that free agent is her. She has signed an extension, which I think is legit. She actually has signed a new deal with AEW, something long-term, that's going to lock her up there for a while. And, I'm not saying this all lines up, but, what if she only had like a year left on her deal, or it was coming up within the year, and Adam Cole wants to come in? She goes, yeah, might as well sign me too. He's going to be here. I obviously want to stay, so they can lock up, kind of both of them. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not, but it is interesting that she has just signed a new deal that will keep her there for the next several years, I'm sure. So maybe Adam Cole can come in and do the same exact thing. Who knows? But I enjoyed the fact that they're having fun with this, and just them talking about a free agent. Everybody knows that she's with Adam Cole. So, being able to kind of wink at the fans, nod kind of thing. I always like when wrestlers or wrestling companies do that. And, it kind of adds a little bit of fuel to the likely Adam Cole to AEW fire, which I'm really hoping turns out to be the case, and we get him on TV sooner rather than later. But like I said, Daniel Bryan's coming in too. It's got to be delicate with how you balance all that out to where you don't overload the fans with too much awesomeness, and you spread the awesomeness out a little bit, is what I would try to do. After that, we had a return. Great to see Anna Jay back. She exceeded my expectations for her return. I still thought she was a ways off. I don't know why. So this was all a surprise to me to see her come out there. It was Ty Conti versus Penelope Ford, or as Booker T calls her, Penelope. So it's Ty Conti versus Penelope Ford. Fucking crack me up, Booker T. She wins. Bunny's at ringside. She jumps in and attacks, so Penelope and Bunny are beating down Conti, and then Dark Order music hits. Out comes Anna Jay back from injury, hops in the ring, saves her bestie, and they dispatch and dispose of Penelope and Bunny, and Conti and Jay share an embrace, and they walk off together, and those two are very fun together, and I could see Anna Jay winning that Battle Royal. We'll see. how that goes down. The only other thing I want to talk about in terms of last night's Dynamite is the main event. Crazy tag team match with the Elite defeating the Lucha Brothers and Jurassic Express. This shit was all over the place. Meltzer driver to Rey Fenix at the end by the Bucks for the win. And then the crazy stuff happened after when the brawl continued. We get a magic killer to Luchasaurus on the table on the outside of the ring. Christian then runs out, and of course he is overwhelmed. Kenny Omega has dyed his hair completely black. I would have liked it like a little lighter, maybe with the gray in it like he had in New Japan, but it's kind of like jet black here. It's kind of going to take a little bit of time to get used to that. Most fans, it seemed like, judging from social media, did not approve of the hairstyle by Kenny Omega. And Omega was talking about how he had meetings earlier on in the day with Tony Khan to discuss, I don't know, merchandising or video games or some other bullshit. And he says something like, make sure you keep an eye on your personal property. Don Callis, I know you've got the key to the cage lowering mechanism or whatever. Go in there and lower the cage. So he instructs Don Callis, who I guess pickpocketed Tony Khan, I guess, to get the key to the cage lowering machine. This is the way I interpreted it, so I may be way off. I was just laughing when I was watching. I'm like, what the fuck? So they start lowering the cage, which we've seen that in WWE before. They've lowered cages before to trap motherfuckers in there. So they do that. Cage is now down. Christian and the Luchas and Jurassic are just getting their ass kicked in there. Kaz comes out, Elite Hunter. We've got Orange Cassidy, Dante Martin. They show up there. Marco Stunt, I think, is with them. They're trying to get into the cage, but they're being cold sprayed and knocked off and all that. And basically the show goes off the air with the beatdown in progress, which I just kind of thought was a fun ending to the show. Sometimes I like kind of just the discombobulated ending like that. I really liked it. Now, after the show, there was videos all over social media from people at the event last night when the show went off the air. Tony Khan came out and sold it, and he's all pissed off, and he's screaming and hooting and hollering and ranting and raving or whatever because he got pickpocketed. His key to the cage lowering machine got stolen. I still love that there's a cage lowering machine. So he's all pissed off, and he looked really, really mad. So we'll see if anything goes down on Friday. Technically, this is your go-home show, sort of, but, you know, they did tape Rampage, I think, after the fact. Is when they taped that. So, oh, wait, unless it's live. I don't recall. I don't know what's going to go down on Friday, but I'm fully expecting Kenny Omega to retain the title over Christian, but they beat the fuck out of him last night. So it feels like Christian's got to try to get one over on him at least, you know, before, or, you know, if they're still looking for that place to debut Daniel Bryan, you know, maybe Kenny beats Christian and he's beating him down, and then Daniel Bryan comes out to make the save, and we got an immediate stare down between Kenny and Daniel Bryan. And, you know, yeah, does that make a lot of sense for him to come into AEW and get a title feud right away? Well, no, but how many times does somebody main event a WrestleMania and then show up in the other company 4 months later? Pretty fucking rare. So if this guy's got a chance at Roman Reigns the last time he was in the ring, stands to reason he should probably deserve a match against Kenny Omega too. But I would also like to see that be reserved for Hangman Page at the Arthur Ashe show if they even care about still putting the belt on him. So I think that maybe Elite can have Christian's number going into All Out, and then Christian can still come up short or something, but kind of get the last laugh in the end when, you know, he debuts a friend or something like that. I don't know. So we'll see. And, you know, we'll see too if Daniel Bryan gets there, it would be fun to see a wrestling company, or it's fun when a wrestling company teases a history or a relationship between two people that happen in another wrestling company. Like, would it be a stretch for Daniel Bryan to come in and Christian being like, I know you and my boy Edge weren't getting along, and if you would have stayed there, you would have been feuding with him. So maybe it's me. I mean, Daniel Bryan and Edge was getting pissed off at Daniel Bryan, and Edge pretty much blamed Daniel Bryan for costing him the title at WrestleMania. So you felt like after WrestleMania, that was going to be your program. Maybe a little bit of that spills over. You know, maybe Christian, this might be a good opportunity for a heel turn for Christian. You know, Daniel Bryan comes in seemingly to help Christian, and then the following week on TV, you know, Christian can even say something on commentary like, yeah, I got a phone call from my friend last night. You know him, Adam. He wanted me to give you a message. And then bam, and then nails Daniel Bryan and knocks him out. I don't think they would do that, but They could, so there's lots of, when you think about if they are going to bring in Daniel Bryan, if they are going to bring in more than one surprise, I think Daniel Bryan, I think Ruby Soho is a really good candidate for the Casino Battle Royal. I'd love to see her win that. Possibly Strowman, possibly Adam Cole, and Bray Wyatt down the road. Like, where exactly do you put those guys in? Bray Wyatt's an easy one. Dark Order, leader, done. But everybody else, who knows? Who is Daniel Bryan going to feud with? Daniel Bryan, even though I pitched Bryan and Omega, that would be an awesome match. I don't know if you want to put Daniel Bryan right in there in a title match just to get those certain fans that will say, oh, they just pushed W, or whatever. So balance it. It's a lot of excitement. It's a lot of awesome things happening at once. And it's just a matter of how you present this to us as to how it comes off, So we'll see. It's an exciting damn time, and I am ready as hell for Sunday night at All Out. It's going to be a hoot. But anyway, that kind of does it for my notes. I don't really have much else to get into. Not a ton of comments here. I need to get to these super chats and knock them out, but I just lost them. I see a couple. There's a $2 from Spaz. R.I.P. Scream Queen. Rest in peace to Daffney, man. Such a tragedy. Bulu Fatalulu. I probably butchered that. I'm sorry, my friend. Thank you for the $5. Prayers for Daffney. Such a shame. For those of you just tuning in, if you want to hear my thoughts on Daffney and everything we talked about earlier on, just scroll back a bit to the beginning. We opened up with the Daffney tragedy right at the top of the show here, about an hour ago. If you want to check that out, you can. Some people don't have any interest in seeing Chris Jericho on commentary because he does tend to scream at us a lot. He likes that. Oh, that's right. I forgot about Shogun in WWE. I mean, yeah, Mr. Ass and Big Show do have some history from WWE. Yeah, transferring heat. I agree with that too. If they want to bring Daniel Bryan in, he could be the last thing we see on the show. And I think he's a big enough star to be that. So that would be the one justification to Punk and Darby Allin being on the undercard. Now, what the fans have to try to be careful about, I mean, hell, you could open with Punk and Darby, Should either open or close, really. But if you didn't and you bumped it, before the fans jump all over themselves to complain about it, just wait and see how the show plays out. Because if they have Daniel Bryan scheduled to come out at the end, then I think Punk and Darby, you could make a case for them to be semi-main event or something like that. We've seen Punk cut a couple of promos now. He's gotten physical in the ring. It's still going to be a very, very new thing to see him wrestling in the ring in his gear, but not a really, really new thing just to see him in the ring in general. We've seen that a few times now. So maybe, and I'm sure that's the thing. Like, these guys have input. They can suggest these things to Khan. CM Punk himself might say, look, if you got Daniel Bryan coming in, why don't you put me and Darby on first, and you can have Daniel Bryan come out at the end or whatnot, or put us in the semi-main. Daniel Bryan coming in should be a show closing thing. And then Tony Khan's like, oh, you're right, or whatever, and we'll do it. Either way, it's going to be awesome. I'm not somebody that's going to get too hung up on what match is the main event. Sometimes I prefer things to be, but if it works out better for it to be another way, I'm always open to that. It's not just so black and white. It has to be this. No, it doesn't. It can be a lot of things. So it just kind of depends. So it's a very good point there that if Danielson does appear, the title match could be and should be the main event. But I will also say this. If the title match is the main event, I think that telegraphs the hell out of a big surprise because we've already seen Kenny and Christian. We saw it on free TV, and it was a hell of a match. So to give it to us again on pay-per-view in the main event, you got to do something crazy at the end. Otherwise you would go with Punk and Darby Allin. You know what I mean? So I can kind of see it going both ways on that one. Thank you, Metalhead Life, for that dancing $5 super chat. You are the best. Good to see you, Diet Vodka, in here as well. Bring out Mark Henry and Shaq. Deshaun, you have lost your mind. Although Shaq did pretty good in that match. Went through a table and everything, didn't he? Ben Espinoza, the key being stolen reminds me of Eddie Guerrero stealing Ric Flair's number in the 2005 Royal Rumble. Didn't even think about that. I remember it was Survivor Series 88. It was Mega Powers and like $1 Million Man's team or Twin Towers team or some shit like that. And Slick was out there and they handcuffed Hogan to the rope. And then Slick got taken out and Elizabeth pickpockets Slick and takes the keys out and uncuffs Hogan. Fucking great moment. Awesome stuff. Anytime somebody gets pickpocketed in wrestling, it's fun shit, man. Fun shit. Yeah, and I agree with you, Conor McGregor. I think Jericho's retirement will be a huge thing. At least I hope. I mean, they've had enough. I mean, think about how many different celebrations of Jericho we've had. You know, you think he's not going to make his retirement a big deal? I think we should. It would be super fun if we did that. Some Jericho appreciation night. But I don't think he's retiring here. I think it would be more of a focal point. We talked about I forgot what podcast it was on. I want to say it was Monday night's Raw review. We were just shooting the shit, and I brought up Kevin Owens. And I have no idea, still don't. I have no clue what his contract status is. But he's another guy that's on my radar. Oh, I know what it was. It was because he had tweeted out it was the 5-year anniversary of when he won the Universal title. And I was like, man, how is this fucker not won multiple titles by now? The fact that he hasn't had multiple runs in the company is an absolute crime, especially when him winning it was one of the best nights in the modern era. A truly surprising moment. Sold so unbelievably well by Kevin Owens that fans actually thought WWE did not tell him to finish. That's how good he was at just selling the emotion and the surprise of winning it. It's right up there with Edge's return of just utter disbelief. Holy shit, I'm doing it. It was one of the most moving kind of reactions to anything wrestling related we've ever seen. You know, and the fact that he's never been there again, I'm like, AEW is a place for him, man. There's so much for him to do. He could just fall right back into that Kevin Steen name like it was nothing, and do wonderful things. And if you put him there and Jericho was still there, festival of best friendship, you know, coming up on Dynamite one night, the WWE trademark Festival of Friendship. They probably did. But if they didn't, do it again or do Jericho, Owens, and maybe even have Owens be the guy to retire Jericho or something. I don't know. But whatever the contract status with Kevin Owens is, I hope it's up soon and I hope he doesn't resign. Because I've seen Kevin Owens have great undercard, U.S. title, Intercontinental title matches for the past 5 years in WWE. He's great. I've seen it all. I feel like Kevin Owens in the spot that he's in is run its course. So either give him a run with the world title or let him go somewhere else where I can really enjoy some of his matches because they might actually mean a little bit more. And Kevin Owens, he's gotten big wins at WrestleMania and he's had big high-profile matches, but they've never gone with him again. You know, so I think it's not like I wouldn't consider Kevin Owens mistreated at all. I don't think they beat him too much. I don't think he loses matches he shouldn't lose all the time. He's featured on TV. He's not treated like a joke or a piece of shit. He took Roman Reigns and everybody else he's worked with to the limit. So Owens isn't somebody who I feel is mistreated in WWE, but I feel like he should have been world champion since his last run, at least once, twice at the minimum there. So the fact that he's not, I'm like, okay, you know, how you can only do what you're doing with him for so long. And if this is okay with him, then that's fine. But I think there would be a whole new, fresh set of circumstances, heel and babyface, in AEW. You know, especially heel. I'd like to see Owens go back to being a heel again. That's fun when he's a heel. And so just a fresh environment, new place to be kind of thing. Would be great for him to head to AEW. So I would love to see that, but who knows? He might be locked in for 3 or 4 more years for all I know. Not sure. Tony, we're well aware of what wrestlers and retirement do. We all know that. I was in the audience for Roddy Piper's retirement match in 1987. I think he was a tag team champion in 2005. So put that into perspective. For 2003, what year was it that him and Flair won the tags on Raw or some shit? Ace Man LLC, this is coming from a black guy. There is a very vocal minority of black wrestling fans who continue to complain about it. It's a big misconception. Can't force diversity pushes. Yeah, I agree. And there's been a lot of talk too. A lot of people almost like nobody's like really angry. It's more of like a joking way of pointing out that AEW doesn't have a whole lot of black wrestlers. They don't. I don't think that's on purpose. I think that's just the way it happened to be. Where WWE, they seem to be really pushing the diversity, with just a lot, just all their champions, everybody on top, there's a wide array there. Where in AEW, the conception is it's all elite whiteness or something like that. It's kind of funny. that is certainly not on purpose. They're not actively going out there trying not to hire black wrestlers. There are some there, but it is kind of true though, the way that is. So, in some cases, I think, diversity and having that part of your roster is something AEW needs to improve on. Just like a couple years ago when they first started, their women's division left a lot to be desired. But what happened in that last couple of years? It got better. It built up. I think the roster in terms of diversity, we can see the same things happen. So it's only a matter of time before that gets better and that changes, I believe. But I don't certainly for a minute. And he goes, there's there's tribalism and stuff. So there's extreme anti-AEW people, extreme anti-WWE people. I don't fall in either of those categories. So the anti-AEW people, I'm sure, are going to believe in their head and convince themselves that AEW is doing that on purpose and Tony Khan's racist and whatever the fuck. It's not the case. Sometimes it just is the way it happens to be. But they could use a little bit more diversity in AEW. I ain't going to lie. Cody Rhodes represents the black community. My God, we're going to have to get him back cutting promos soon. Me and my wife and my beautiful, beautiful, beautiful brown baby. He's just going to cry and be obnoxious. Cody Rhodes, he'll be back soon, probably to resume his deal with Malachi Black. I didn't pay much attention, to Malachi's promo from last night, so I'm not exactly sure what he said. He is off the all-out card from what I can tell, correct? He doesn't have a match set up, I don't think. So he just got done murdering poor Brock Anderson and doing in Cody. So we'll see. Yeah, just give them more time. There was a video that was actually quite entertaining, and it was talking about that. I forgot who posted it now. Lots of views, everybody saw it, and it was definitely true. I just don't think, any of that is done on purpose. I mean, that's just not... There's no way they would be, especially internally, sitting around a table. All right, look, everyone, no hiring black guys. I'm serious. Like, they're not saying that. So that's an absurd notion. Anybody who does think that, I just think it's one of those, coincidences. And, they will get better. I mean, hell, they've had Snoop doing frog splashes. They got Jade Cargill. They got Powerhouse Hobbs. They got some in the tag team division. They're there and stuff. It's just not, WWE's got a lot of diversity in race and culture there with a lot of their talent. But AEW will get cracking on that too, I have no doubt. There's plenty of chocolate. Miss Cargill. I don't know. I think she's like, she's above chocolate. She's like the super expensive chocolates. What are they called? She's one of them. Like the really expensive ones. And she knows it too. Sometimes I find her a little bit hard to stomach on social media, but I hope that she gets better in the ring because physically, she's a female Lex Luger, in terms of just ridiculousness. So hopefully she'll get better and she will be a force to be reckoned with. I think she's in that Casino Battle Royale as well, so she could just eliminate everybody by herself. But I would also like to see maybe her get ganged up on, her get tossed out. I don't know. Is Camille scheduled for this thing? Would love to see an eventual clash between Camille and Cargill at some point. That could be fun. And like I said, would love to see Ruby Soho show up, which it looks like based on her vignette. Did you guys catch that? She had another vignette walking through the streets of New York, and they're playing the Rancid song. So to everybody who's saying, oh, I hope when she comes into AEW, Tony Khan pays for the rights to the song, I think that vignette pretty much guarantees that. And, would love to see her come in and at All Out, because at the end of that vignette, if you noticed it, it flashed on the screen real quick. It said destination, and then it had like however many letters are in Chicago. I guess 7. Had 7 little blank spaces there. So, and it was only on the screen for a second, but destination Chicago does make a lot of sense, and I think her showing up in that battle royale will be quite nice, and she's going to really help that division. Think about the strides they've made, the growth they've had in that 2 years when it was like Riho and a couple of others, man. It was weak. The matches were weak. The division in general was weak and insignificant and very minor on the show. And fans, of course, jumped up all of their asses about it. And I'm like, well, they're brand new. All they can do is try to improve that, and they did. And they're adding talent, and they have their Charlotte in Britt Baker now. And I think in the end, the fans are going to probably like her legacy more than Charlotte's. Although AEW has to be careful with what they do with her, because if she starts winning multiple titles. It's probably already happened. I just did it right now. But I think the comparisons to Charlotte will continue to grow the more Britt continues to win. And hopefully, because right now, I just want you to note the date, September 2nd, 2021. As of this moment, at 4:15 on the West Coast, every wrestling fan that I interact with and that I've seen on social media, for the most part, likes Britt Baker. Everybody likes her work. Her promos are good. She's had some really good matches. For the most part, everybody is team Britt Baker. You watch. If she starts winning too much, all of a sudden, she's going to not be able to wrestle. All of a sudden, she's not going to be able to cut a promo. All of a sudden, she's only going to get pushed because she's with Adam Cole or something. They'll say that. They'll say it. And all of a sudden, she doesn't want to put anybody over and she's selfish. Somebody save this clip just for a year down the line when you start seeing that shit on social media, and play it for them and say that we know what you're thinking before you even think it, because they're going to do it. But I'm happy that they've built that character. She has that star power. She comes off like a star. She carries herself like a star. Her promos, everything she did. That injury, I think, really helped her. The shit with Tony Schiavone and I'll never forget the pulley system of the notes up to the commentary booth. Little things like that was just really starting to get fans to notice. And look at where she is now. I mean, I saw her live on the Jericho Cruise, and she wasn't there yet. She was still, I think she was a heel, but she hadn't gotten to that point yet. So the fact that she's such a big star now, they made a lot of progress in a short amount of time with the women's division. So I think the diversity stuff will probably follow the same suit there. And yes, Ruby will really help that women's division. Okay, yeah, and the dude Lars, he's really good friends with CM Punk. And he also seems like a guy that's not going to be putting up too much of a fight. He might even just let them use the song for free and not even accept the royalties for it. He seems like that type of dude. So that's awesome. Yes, yeah, Jacob. We've seen it. That's the thing. We've been doing it for so long. We know what they're going to say. Because it's never, it can never be about their own bias. They have to twist it and bullshit themselves into thinking there's actual real reasons why they shouldn't get pushed, when really they just don't like that they win. So then that's when they start. That's what happened with John Cena. All of a sudden, he couldn't cut a promo. One of the best talkers the business have ever seen can't cut a promo. All of a sudden, he can't wrestle. Every year he's in the business, he has a match of the year candidate. Can't wrestle. Okay. It's kind of never really seen a wrestler capable of that, not being able to wrestle, but have match of the year candidates, multiple match of the year candidates every year he wrestles. But okay, that's the delusion that they take themselves to. They will do anything to make it seem like they've got some like sort of analytical opinion on something, when really they're just a fucking mark like the rest of us. So they try to BS themselves like they know what they should be pushed, and she should do this with her. And it's the smugness, it's the arrogance that's in the wrestling community. It's the disingenuous nature of everybody, which is a lot of the same ways WWE even operates and thinks themselves. So I guess it stands to reason the fans would be the same way. But anywho, I got to get out of here. I got to head to work, and then I've got to get ready for a big weekend of streaming. Just to remind you, this coming Saturday, we're going to do a 5 p.m. Eastern, 5 o'clock, 2 p.m. on the West Coast, I'll be up here to talk SmackDown, AEW Rampage, and we're going to predict the entire All Out card. Sunday night after All Out, we'll be up here to review the show. The link for that is already posted on the channel and in the link in the description below. So just scroll down below, and you can click that link, like it, save it for Sunday. It's going to be a blast. And then, of course, Monday we'll be up here for the Raw review. And this coming Wednesday kicks off Wednesday night watch-alongs. Every Wednesday we're going to be up here live, reacting to Dynamite. It's going to be a little bit different looking of a stream. I'm going to try to set it up different, make the interactions a little bit more fun, and work on some stuff this week. So that will grow and evolve as we go. But I want the Wednesday night watch-alongs to kind of be a thing this fall and see some of these really great Dynamites that I think we're going to get this year. It's going to be a blast. And, of course, last but not least, rest in peace again to Daffney. Condolences and our thoughts go out to her family and friends. And like I said, I'm sure there will be some sort of a GoFundMe or a donation opportunity for you guys if you would like to donate. But in the meantime, I've got the link to her Pro Wrestling Tees store in the description below. You can go down there, pick up a shirt, help support the family, and help support the cause. And to tribute and remember Daffney, gone way too soon. And unfortunately, wrestling was dealt another horrific blow, and that's a shame. But you guys have a great rest of your afternoon. Have a great Friday, and I will see you Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, depending on where you live, for all